Are you in the camp that this is unavoidable at this point? You've seen this movie a lot of times before. Could somebody pull something out of the fire?
Joe, it's always a pleasure, and really, particularly, and Mario, good afternoon. Somebody might be able to pull something out of the fire, but let me say two things about where this is going. One is that it's in both parties' interest to have a performative shutdown. I think probably short. Schumer got a lot of grief the last time out for not taking Trump on more, and the base is demanding some sort of demonstration against bad orange man. So I think they probably get one. On Trump's side, not only is it kind of Republicans want what they want, number one, but number two, for markets, it's in Trump's and Republicans' interest to remind everybody just whose fault the debt and deficit are, pin that particular tail on the Democratic donkey. And so they'll try to do that. But Schumer's rhetoric, I think, masks just how modest their ask is. The ask is pretty modest, and it has to do with the premium levels under Obamacare and putting them in this particular bill. Republicans have indicated they might be willing to compromise on that issue, but they don't want it in a temporary spending bill. So now all we're talking about really is, who's going to nod at who and say they won something. And, Democrats are kind of desperate to say they won anything. They pitched the whole Kimmel reinstatement as a win for them, even though they really didn't have anything to do with it. So any kind of nod, they're going to say to people, well, you know what, we looked bad orange man in the eye and got him to do something on this. In reality, they're going to fight about Republicans and Democrats are going to fight about spending for months to come, and it is not at all uncommon to have spending bills go on until January, February, even March. The final thing I will say before I stop this filibuster is that the concerns about debt and deficit in the markets are real. They'll get stoked a little bit, but markets have now discovered tariffs are their friend, and tariff revenues specifically are their friend. So, even that gets mitigated a little bit. So I think we're in for a shutdown, but not a long one.
Thanks so much for joining us, Harry. Really appreciate it. And just to piggyback off of what you said, how much economic pain would there be if there's, say, a 4 or 5 day shutdown? Maybe if it extends even to this game of chicken, it extends for a couple of weeks. Is there a risk there for Republicans and the president that voters will be pretty angry about this at all from an economic aspect?
I think, Mario, from the economic aspect, two things. One is on the actual economics. What ends up happening is, it's well known that shutdowns are economically inefficient, just meaning it costs the government more to shut down in some cases than it does to keep it open. So there's that. Beyond that, though, I think this looks largely to markets, and I think to the broader public, the usual kabuki theater that goes on around spending this time of year. Both parties are playing to their purist bases, so both sides will end up thinking and get those purist bases will get fed the information that they got particular wins one way or the other, and life will go on. And in this case, it'll totter on for I think probably weeks and months to come. What I would look at is the kind of the year-end traditional defense authorization and defense spending bills is kind of a trigger for a broader deal, but I don't think a final deal happens much before then.
Interesting. Well, we could have a couple of different outcomes here, it seems. Republicans, the line that we've been getting on this program, Terry, and you're very kind to watch and listen sometimes, is that, hey, number one, this is a Biden budget. We're only asking you to continue what was passed under the previous president. And also, a policy matter to be debated in December should have nothing to do with a funding emergency that we're dealing with in September. Do you have an ear on Republicans' messaging here? Does that matter to voters?
You're absolutely right about what they've said on the program, and those are the talking points. And does that matter to voters? I think not a lot. Voters tend to look at this kind of stuff in primary colors more than anything else. And it is, is the government spending more, or the government spending less? Are my priorities being dealt with? And what ends up happening in, shutdown or no, every single year is that what you end up with is a status quo on government spending. It adjusts upwards, by inflation or even less than inflation, 1.5%, something like that. And you've got, this year you'll have more than the usual upticks in defense spending, but you're also going to have a situation where domestic spending remains largely intact and largely, the same number. So, both sides will fight to a draw, as they always do.
It's interesting, Mario. We've talked so much about Russ Vought and whether this is in his playbook. There is at least a theory that the White House is hoping for this shutdown.
That was exactly the point I was looking to speak with Terry about on that point, Joe. Just the fact that what makes this shutdown a bit different than the ones we've seen before is this fight for impoundment that we've seen taking place with Congress, Doge earlier this year. And we know that the calculation that Schumer made earlier this year, part of the reason that he didn't fight through was because he was worried about federal workers.
Yes, right.
He was worried about the president's ability to kind of impound funds, if you will, pick and choose what's essential for the government.
When the threat could actually be greater now. Do you buy into this theory, Terry?
In what sense? In the theory that Vought's interested in testing impoundment?
That Vought's, well, yes, but also has a playbook here. And if the government shuts down, the Trump administration is now in control of what is essential and what is not, and will use that power in a way that we've not seen before.
I think both of those are true. Frankly, they have things that they want to roll out and things that they want to test. And all I'll say is, I think the administration is absolutely wrong on the whole impoundment matter and the idea that the president can, essentially line item things out. I use that not in a strict legal sense, but kind of a general sense. The reason why is because the president's power under the Constitution is not just to negotiate with Congress about spending bills, but to actually veto the spending bills if he doesn't want them. I mean, that's the president's power. The president can say to Congress, look, I'm against the bill, and presidents do this all the time. I'm against the spending bill that you're putting in front of me or spending bills in front of me for these 5 or 10 reasons, and I'm going to veto it and send it back, and we're all going to negotiate and have a resolution or not. And to come at this, to have the president sign something. I know this is not strictly the situation you asked me about, but to have the president sign spending bills of any kind and then pick and choose what it is that he's allowed to enforce or not is, I think, an untenable situation for them constitutionally.
And Terry, just looking ahead to next November, it's a little bit over a year out, of course. But does this factor into the midterms at all?
No. And, as far as the midterms go today, I think we don't know a damn thing, firstly. Secondly, on, and majorities, I always tell people majorities don't equal control. Those words, the word control tends to get slopped around a lot. But if you got a tiny majority in the House or the Senate, they're majorities, all right, as you can see today, but they're not control, as Leader Schumer points out. Republicans can't just do anything they want in the Senate with 53 seats. So, you got a situation here where even their tiny majorities flip over as they might. That doesn't equal control. Secondly, and lastly, this idea that Democrats have it all over Republicans these days is not true on the major issues, whether you look at the economy, immigration, or crime.